Welcome to Chapter 19, finally to the evolution of vertebrates, which is where we go. Yay! Okay, so been slamming through these suckers. This is the last one for this week. Then I get to start working ahead. And next week we actually get to meet, finally, in person. Isn't that cool? I noticed while setting this one up what I'm wearing, so I figured, hey, let's throw this one out there for extra credit. Let's see how many people can figure out what team I follow. Let's figure it out. Alrighty. Extra credit if you can figure out why. It's probably not going to be what you think. So anyway, evolution of vertebrate diversity. Here we go. Intro. Vertebrates have been evolving for 500 million years. Currently, there's more than 60,000 vertebrate species. And scientists are putting it all together with the evolutionary history of vertebrates using all of the usual clues like before. And of course, then also the DNA stuff. So, putting everything together, one of the things being right here. Developmental homologies. And I realize I need to turn on my little laser pointer. There we go. Ta-da! Ooh, I just thought of something. And I know this is silly. I can change my color. I'm going to change it to green. I like green. Okay. Alrighty. There we go. Now, the book titled this one as Who Were the Hobbit People? And I had to keep it because, again, geek. But anyway, yes, we're finally going to get to the primates and everything. So, our big ideas: vertebrate evolution and diversity, primate diversity, and then hominin evolution. This is where we finally get to us and a lot of the biggest misconceptions about what evolution actually means and what Darwin actually said. So, first off, vertebrate evolution and diversity. Shared derived characters define the major clades of chordates. And yes, you're probably going to see me bouncing, but it's because I've been sitting for too long trying to get everything done, and so I'm just like doing this with my feet. Anyone who's ever had me in a lecture, I normally pace nonstop, and it's very, very difficult to do all of these lectures and not be able to just go back and forth and back and forth. So on occasion, I just start doing this for myself. So, using a combination of anatomical, molecular, and fossil evidence, biologists have developed hypotheses for the evolution of chordate groups. Chordates, what we mentioned in the previous video lecture and the previous chapter with the notochord. Okay, so what in the world was that? We are about to have an image coming up. Figure 19.1 in the textbook shows a current view of the major clades of chordates and lists some of the derived characters that define the clades. Here you go. This is a phylogenetic tree showing it all. So way over here we have the common ancestor of the chordates. And then here's the lancets. We ended the previous video lecture with this and this. So now that brings us down here where we get our vertebrae. We now have the vertebral column, and then we branch off here to our hagfish and lampreys. These guys are vertebrates, but they are some of the most basic vertebrates. They do not even have jaws like we know of as jaws. Here, we now evolve jaws, and we have jaws. No, just kidding. And then that's where we come up with our sharks and rays. I love these. I did not put a bunch of pictures of these guys in here, and oh, that was hard. Future quarters, I might have to put them back in. But anyway, that's where we finally got jaws. Then we get lungs or something similar to lungs, and that's where we get our ray-finned fish. And then we get lobed fins, and we get our lobe-finned fishies. And then that leads us up to legs, And then we get our amphibians, and then we get the amniotic egg. I made references to this in the first week, but we're finally going to really learn about the amniotic egg. And that gives us our reptiles. And then finally we have milk production, which brings us to our mammals. So this is how we finally get to us. Alrighty then. So, list the hierarchy of clades to which mammals belong. We kind of just did this, but here you go. Chordates, vertebrates, jawed vertebrates, tetrapods, and amniotes. Tetrapod means tetra for 4, pod for feet, so 4 feet. And once you get to us, ours are hands and feet, arms and legs, but it's still 4. And so that's why the tetrapod. All right, hagfishes and lampreys. These were the most basic of our vertebrates, so we're going to talk about it. Rudimentary vertebrate, which means, bottom line basically, have the notochord for the body's main support, and they lack hinged jaws and paired fins. So their jaws, they don't do like this. They don't do like ours do. Hagfishes are deep sea scavengers, and they produce slime as an anti-predator defense. And then the lamprey, I think I have pictures of the lamprey in a second. These adults are parasites that penetrate the sides of fish with their rasping tongues, and we have a picture of that too. And let me point out, when you see fishes like this, that is proper, that is not a typo. If you say, look at all those fish, and it's all the same type of fish, that is accurate. Fishes mean multiple types of different types of fish. I know, weird, but it's true. So here's a lamprey. This is its mouth right here. So look at all those tiny little itty bitty teeth. So it's not really teeth, but what they do as an adult, they attach to something just and munch away. All right, now we get to our jawed vertebrates. And so what happens is everything here slowly evolved until we had actual jaws. And they appeared in the fossil record about 440 million years ago. Diversified, bunch of different things changed, different types, used paired fins and a tail to chase a wide variety of prey, so they could all go after different things. Jaws may have evolved by modified skeletal supports, and we'll see an image of that in a second. And the remaining gill slits remained as sites for gas exchange. So here we go. This would be the original, so here's where the mouth was for the others. And then if you look at these skeletal rods here and the gill slits, skeletal rods slowly started to connect, merge, and then we got a hinged jaw. So there you go. That's how we now have jaws. We have 3 lineages of jawed vertebrates with gills and paired fins, and these are commonly called fishes. We have chondrichthyans, which are the sharks and rays, flexible skeleton made mostly out of cartilage. This is where a lot of issues come from for a lot of stuff I cover in environmental science. The fact that they are made out of cartilage and not bone, there's a lot of crazy ideas, question mark, for lack of a better phrase. There are cultures who sit there and say, hey, sharks don't get cancer, and so if we consume this, we won't get cancer. That's very faulty logic, and actually sharks can get cancer, just so you know. So that part's even wrong. But you have entire groups that will sit there and hack off the shark's fins and stuff in order to make soup and to consume it because they think for some reason there's some special something in there. But there you go. Sharks and rays, they don't have bones, they have cartilage. Then we have our ray-finned fishies. Tuna, trout, goldfish. All of these, they have a skeleton made of bone, but their fins are a very specific way. And then we have our lobed fin fishies. These are the coelacanths and lungfish. Cool thing, coelacanths, they thought that they were extinct until there was this marine biologist who was traveling and he saw one in a fish market. And he's like, whoa, wait a minute, and checked it out. And I say he, and that's very sexist of me because I really don't know if it was a male or a female student. I think it might actually have been a girl, but I'm not sure. Anyway, this person, we'll just say person, saw the coelacanth and then asked the fish market people about it, and they found there's a certain location they were catching them, and bam, it went off of the extinct list. And I thought that was pretty cool. Anyway, the lobefin fish have a series of rod-shaped bones in their pectoral and pelvic fins. Pectoral for here, like pecs, and then pelvic for pelvis. So they have the two sets of fins, but they found that there's actually these little bones in there, and that's pretty much what led to the tetrapods getting out and walking. So that's the difference between the ray-finned and the lobed-finned fish. Here we go. This is showing you a fish. We have the pectoral fin here, the pelvic fin there, and the bony skeleton and the gills. So here we go, a rainbow trout. This is a ray-finned. Look at the little fins, little rays. So from what structure might the swim bladder of ray-finned fishes have evolved? Right there, simple lungs of an ancestral species. So it's slowly built up. You look at the fish, you don't think of lungs at all. We're getting there. So here's a variety of ray-finned fish. I love that it calls it a balloon fish because I grew up knowing this guy as a puffer fish. So I don't know if they've decided to rename them or what. Seahorse, love the seahorse. They're so cute. I like the sea dragons too. And then the flounder. Flounders are very fascinating. I like flounders because both of their eyes are on one side, but here's the cool part, is if you ever look up the details about a flounder, when they are babies, their eyes are on like what you would assume is normal. Then as the flounder stays on the ground, the floor of the ocean, the one eye migrates over there, so then it ends up having both of them on one side of its head. They're pretty interesting. All right, a lobe-finned lungfish. Look at the difference. These fins, you can tell, are not the same as that ray-finned fish. Now, line of lobe-finned fishes gave rise to tetrapods, jawed vertebrates with limbs and feet that can support weight on land. Again, tetrapods, tetra for 4, and pods for feet. Their adapting to life on land was the key event in vertebrate history. The fact that they could get up onto land and adapt. That was the big thing. Now, all subsequent groups of vertebrates, amphibians, mammals, and reptiles, including birds, yes, birds fall in that general area, are descendants of these early land dwellers. So here's our list. So way back here we have our common ancestor, and then we have our lungfish. And then we break down, we get here, and we keep on working until we get digits all the way down to the amniotes. We'll explain that. This goes back to the stuff we showed you previously last week, and when we talked homologous features, and I did the human arm and like the bat wing and the cat's paw and the horse's hoof, all that stuff, which by the way is part of what the lecture assignment was, and some people just said a couple of things that were on slides and they didn't make reference to that. If you didn't make reference to what I told you to make reference for, that's why you didn't get all the points. I say that now, but chances are the same people might not make it all the way through this video either, so whatever. Anyway, it's the same kind of thing. And so if you notice, this is where we see all of this slowly. So this is where all of a sudden you see the humerus and the radius and the ulna and the foot or fin. And you see that it's slowly expanding. This is where we're starting to get some digits instead of the solid thing. And everything is slowly working its way until, bam, look at this. That brings us to us. So pretty cool, actually, if you look at it. Oh, as I throw things. I warned you, man. I fidget. So, checkpoint question. How did this change scientists' concepts of tetrapod evolution? Right there, it showed that the first tetrapods were more fish-like than previously thought. They did not spend time on land. So basically, those lobed fins, they were working it like this, so they could actually get up out of the water, but they weren't living on land. It's just, they were still in the water, but they could like over to one. And there's actually, to this day, still certain fish that can do that. Pretty cool. Amphibians. These include salamanders, frogs, and I can never say that one. Use their moist skins to supplement their lungs for gas exchange. They often have poison glands in their skins because they really don't want to be munched on. There you go. And they usually lay their eggs in water. Undergo metamorphosis from a larval stage to the adult form, and were the first tetrapods to colonize land. Now, I think salamanders are adorable, but I love frogs. I talked about butterflies in the last lecture, but I think frogs are so much cooler than butterflies, and we're going to talk about that in just a moment. I'm going to do it when we have a certain image on the screen. So, in what ways are amphibians not completely adapted for terrestrial life? Think about what I just mentioned. So how are they not fully adapted? Well, their eggs are not well protected against dehydration. That's why they have to be laid in water. Most species have an aquatic larval form, so their babies can't hatch from the egg and live on land. They need water for that. And their skin is not waterproof and must remain moist to permit gas exchange. Now let me point out, this is one of the big differences between toads and frogs. A lot of people don't understand why we have frogs and toads, but if you've ever noticed, toads can be farther away from water because they are more adapted for that. Frogs, water. Now I'm not saying toads don't go near the water, but they don't have to be as with the water. Here's the image I was waiting for. This is a whole bunch of different fish eggs, and this is showing you, I mean not fish eggs, frog eggs, and this is showing you why, one of the reasons I think frogs are so much cooler than butterflies. A lot of people will talk about change, and they talk about the beauty of the butterfly, and they talk about how it was a caterpillar, and then it goes into the cocoon, and it comes out a beautiful butterfly. Bleh. Is what I say to that one. Yes, the complete change is fascinating, whatnot, whatever. Butterfly has nothing on a frog. Because here, you have something that's born in muck. Because it's not normally a really pretty water source, it's muck. So you have this thing that hatches from an egg, and it's 100% aquatic. It lives in the water. It looks like a little fish. Then it starts growing up and it starts adapting. That's when you get this guy right here. Notice he is literally growing his limbs right there in his fishy form, right in front of everybody. He starts growing those arms and growing those legs and stretching them, learning how to work them. The stronger this part gets, the more the tail starts to disappear because he doesn't need it as much. And then he comes out of the water and then he lives on land. This guy changes so much more than any caterpillar butterfly thing possibly could. He changes right in front of your face, basically daring you to tell him not to. And you get to watch the change happen and 100% appreciate every single change that takes place. To me, that is way cooler than a friggin' butterfly. Does it have anything to do with what we're doing in this class? Not really, but I think it's way cooler. That's why, I don't know if you've noticed. Let's see, there we go. See? Frog. I love frogs. Okay, reptiles, including birds and mammals, are amniotes. This has to do with the amniotic egg. Yes, I mentioned it before. Now we go into much more detail. So, the amnion is a fluid-filled sac surrounding the embryo. And then the yolk sac contains a rich store of nutrients for the developing embryo. So, let me go ahead and point this out. I talked about it, yes, in Bio 1, 2, 3. When we did the osmosis lab, and I held up the raw shellless egg that we worked with, and I pointed out that that was a single cell. Then I try to make sure to tell you, and so here's where the big part's going to come in, and you have to remember it this quarter. The yolk, the yellow part. So many people say that would have been a baby chicken. No, it wouldn't. The yellow part, again, is just the nutrients. If you are using a chicken egg as an example, say you crack open that egg into a pan because you're going to make a fried egg, and you have that clearish stuff. That's albumin, that's the white part. That would be the amnion, that would be the fluid that's in there. Then you have the yolk, the yellow part, that would be the nutrients that were going to grow the baby had it been fertilized. If it was not fertilized, it was never, ever, 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 ever going to be a chicken, ever, because it was not fertilized. You can't grow a chicken from a single cell. Remember, diploid, poof, you have to have one from mom, one from dad. The chicken egg is one from mom. That's it. So not a possible baby chicken until one from dad joins with that egg. Now, you have the amnion, the albumin, the white stuff. Then you have the yellow, which is the yolk. A lot of times when you do this, you will see that little bit of thicker white that's attached to the yolk. That is what, if the egg had been fertilized, would become a chick. So that's what would be the embryo. There you go. Now you know. I should totally make this an essay question on the test. I really should. I might do that. I might add it. Now, we then have the chorion. This is what makes it where the embryo can obtain oxygen from the air and dispose of carbon dioxide, because that gas exchange still needs to take place. So this is the part that's on the outer, and it holds on to where it says enables the embryo to obtain oxygen from the air and dispose of carbon dioxide. When we get to mammals, we will really, really go more into this. Right now, we're totally just talking about the egg. And then this last part helps dispose of metabolic waste. Because again, as the body, even a developing embryo inside an egg, is having to take in the nutrients and get rid of what it doesn't need. So this is what's repeatedly happening. Reptiles includes lizards, snakes, turtles, crocodilians, birds, and extinct dinosaurs. They have a skin covered with scales and waterproofed with keratin. Skin covered with scales. And you're going, how does a bird have scales? Well, I mentioned previously, so I'm reminding you now, that it has modified scales. The feathers are modified scales. Obtain most of their oxygen using lungs and are ectothermic, which means they're absorbing the external heat rather than generating most of their own. Here we go. Grass snake laying eggs. So we've got the European grass snake. I think he is beautiful. I should say she, because laying eggs makes a she. And these are the eggs. They're like leathery. They're not hard like a chicken egg. They're much softer. Here you go. This is what's inside the egg. You have the embryo. You have the yolk, which has all the nutrients. And then this is the chorion. Whoa, all of a sudden my thing stopped working. Why in the world? There we go. So this is the chorion. So this is what's helping it do the gas exchange. This, as I said, albumin. So this is the fluid stuff right here. There's the amniotic cavity with the amniotic fluid. And then this is our shell on the outer part. Most birds can fly. Yes, most, not all. And nearly every part of their bodies reflects the adaptations in order to enhance the flight. Unlike the other living reptiles, birds are endothermic, using heat generated by the metabolism to maintain a warm, steady body temperature. And birds typically display very complex behaviors, especially during breeding season. They have all these crazy stuff. Again, we talked before about the peacock. So there you go. That's one example. Where it says most birds can fly, important to point out a couple of them, like the ostrich. The ostrich you do not see fly, and I'm kind of grateful for that. Have you seen how big a friggin' ostrich is? That would be freaky. I really don't know why they still have wings, because all they do is this with them. It's kind of funny. Hopefully you'll get to see an ostrich in real life at some point if you haven't. They're bizarre. I have a video I can show you at some point, because we stopped at an ostrich farm one time when we were driving cross country. It was interesting. Then it makes me think of this one book I really like called A Wish for Wings That Work. I love the comic Bloom County from Berkeley Breathed. And he wrote a little Christmas book called A Wish for Wings That Work, which is, I started to say stars, but it doesn't star anybody because it's a book. But Opus is one of the main characters in Bloom Counties, and he's a penguin. He's not quite a penguin, but they just call him a penguin all the time. Anyway, penguins do not fly. However, they are adapted to the area where they live, and so when they are in the water, they look like they're flying in the water. It's really cool. And so they might not fly in the air, but you can still say they fly in the water. Because again, a wish for wings that work. And they work perfectly well. That's what Santa Claus tells them. So my Archaeopteryx. We finally get to do my Archaeopteryx. I made comment about them last week because I'm used to covering them in the first week. Now I get to cover them. So Archaeopteryx. Birds evolved from a lineage of small two-legged dinosaurs called theropods, and the Archaeopteryx is the oldest, most primitive known bird. This one is the one I made comment about that is considered one of the transitional fossils, where it shows reptile to bird. Small bipedal dinosaur with teeth, winged claws, and a long tail with many vertebrae. Early feathers may have functioned in either insulation or in courtship displays. There's a really loud bird out there. Okay, I'm already talking about you guys. You can stop now. Seriously. Noisy. Osiris, go find it. What's funny is he actually stood up. Can't even get out there, but he stood up. Like, okay, sure, I'll take a look. Oh, and then he jumps up on the table instead. So here is the Archaeopteryx, an extinct bird. Notice we have teeth like dinosaurs. There's the winged claw like dinosaurs. Long tail with many vertebrate like dinosaur. And feathers like our birdies. Talons like our birdies. So pretty cool. Mammals are amniotes that have hair and produce milk. So if you think about that phylogenetic tree we started this whole thing off with, and then way down here it said milk, here we are finally to the mammals. Endothermic amniotes with hair and mammary glands that produce milk. Mammals have efficient respiratory and circulatory systems that support their high rate of metabolism. And mammalian teeth are differentiated for many kinds of diets. So our teeth show what we are supposed to eat. Compare your teeth to, say, a cat's teeth. And I keep going like that because Osiris is literally sitting right there. He's got this look like, where is that noise coming from? It's coming from over there. Okay? Just so you know. There you go. He knows enough to walk around on that side. Anyway, cat's teeth, sharp, fangy things. A dog's teeth, sharp, fangy things. Us, they're more flat. A horse, flat. Cows, flat. So our teeth show what we're supposed to be eating. Monotremes are egg-laying mammals. I'm waiting for him to jump. Okay, he didn't do a big jump. Monotremes are egg-laying mammals. Seems weird because normally you hear one of the definitions of a mammal is live birth, but there's a few that lay eggs. Other than that, all other mammals are born rather than hatch. So I would assume the monotremes are the first line of mammals, and then we evolved after that. That's just me throwing that out there. The embryos of marsupials, and I can never get this one right, eutherans, are nurtured by a placenta. So these will be placental, okay? This is where the nutrients from the mother's blood diffuse into the embryo's blood. Now, what separates the marsupials from the placental mammals are here. The marsupial, like a kangaroo, they have a brief gestation and then the baby is born, but the baby is not like a fully developed baby. It's like and then it goes into a pouch. So it's outside of the body, but in something that's held into the body. And then they can, instead of having the umbilical cord kind of thing giving the nutrients, they're able to latch on and drink the breast milk while continuing to develop. Then us, the placental mammals, the eutherans, and the reason this is taking me time is this is a new word for me. All the way up until this textbook, I swear I have always just been told placental mammals. And so apparently we have a new term, but that happens often with biology where they, fine-tune stuff. So here we go. This one, eutherans. Placental mammals bear fully developed live young. I know it's hard to think of like a newborn kitten or a newborn baby as being fully developed, but they are fully developed. They have the ears, they have the eyes, the nose, the mouth, the arms, the individual fingers. All of that is there when the baby is born. It just looks like a mini human or a mini cat. If you ever see the newly born kangaroo, it does not look anything like a kangaroo because everything has not developed yet. Totally look that one up. It's pretty fascinating. So here we go, monotremes. Duck-billed platypus with the newly hatched young. So this is a baby platypus. It's so cute. I like platypus. But then again, I also like Phineas and Ferb. Kangaroo. Marsupial. So yes, he looks a lot like his mommy, but this is not a newly born baby. This is a Joey. He's a lot bigger now. And then we have a zebra with a newborn. This is what we mean by fully developed. It looks like a mini zebra, but look, it still has the sack on it. It's just born. What was it? Was it 2 years ago where it was televised? The giraffe gave birth on camera from one of the zoos, and you saw that the baby giraffe was born, and then it was immediately getting up and like, oh, it was kind of fun to watch. It was pretty cool. Primate diversity. Oh, we're almost there. So, primates evolved as small arboreal mammals by 65 million years ago. This word right here, arboreal, that means in trees. They like trees. So, primate characteristics include limber joints. So the joints move a lot more movable, more we can do with it. Grasping hands and feet with flexible digits. Compare what we can do like this to anything other than primates. Cat can't do this. A dog can't do this. A horse sure as heck can't do this. We can do this. So this is flexible digits. Short snout. right here, a lot shorter. Even if you think of the biggest gorilla or monkey or ape, you're going to have a little bit here, but it's a lot shorter than, like, say, a horse or a dog, because a dog has that longer muzzle. Forward pointing eyes that enhance depth perception. Okay, so we're not the only ones who have this, but forward instead of just on the sides. Again, think of a horse. Their eyes are more like that. Ours are like this. We have better depth perception. Most living primates are arboreal, again, tree living. And the primate body has a number of features that were shaped through natural selection by the demands of living in trees. Although humans never lived in trees, the human body retains many of the traits that evolved in our arboreal ancestors. So we have a lot of the same stuff, but not all, and we'll get there. So how do apes and monkeys differ physically? I know we haven't covered it at all. Why in the world so many of these checkpoint questions or stuff before we cover it? I don't know. Textbooks do that for some reason. Anyway, most apes lack a tail and most have relatively long arms and short legs. Think about when you see the apes walking like that. You see really long arms, shorter legs. And then monkeys have four limbs, arms, that are about the same length as their hind limbs, legs. So here we go. Primate diversity. We have distinguishing primate features. Again, we've got the short snout and the eyes set closer together at the front of the face. Limber shoulder, see, and hip joints, so they move around like this. We can do this with our arm. Meanwhile, if a cat tried to do it, it would look bizarre. Their shoulders don't do this. It's not a ball and socket kind of thing. Well, it is, but not to this degree. 5 highly mobile digits on hands and feet. Flexible thumb, like that. Also known as an opposable thumb. Now, our highly mobile digits on our feet, we can still normally curl, but we can't do quite this, and we do not have the flexible type. We do not have an opposable thumb on our feet, but the earlier primates do. All right, now monkeys, we have Old World monkeys and New World monkeys. Old World monkeys, many are arboreal, but some live on the ground. Nostrils open downward, so down here, and they lack the prehensile tail. A prehensile tail is that tail that they can wrap around and use like an arm. If you ever see monkeys at a zoo or on TV and their tail is wrapped around something and they're hanging from their tail, that is a prehensile tail. They can hold something with it. They can grab something with it. So New World monkeys are all arboreal, nostrils open to the side, and they're farther apart, and many of them have the prehensile tail. Now, apes. This includes gibbons, orangutans, gorillas, chimpanzees, and humans. No, I am not saying that we are an ape, but we fall under this type of category when you are looking at adaptations. Compared to other primates, they have larger brains relative to body size, and their behavior is more flexible. So when you compare orangutans, gibbon, gorilla, chimpanzees, and humans, we have a lot in common. But again, not saying it's the same thing, just like I'm not saying a gorilla and orangutan are the same thing. There's just very specific similarities between them. All right, phylogenetic tree shows that all primates are broken up into 3 groups. We have lemurs, lorises, and bush babies, tarsiers, they're so cute, and arthropods, including monkeys and apes. Fossil record indicates that the arthropods began diverging from other primates about 55 million years ago. So here we go. Way back here we have that ancestral primate, and then that led to our lemurs and stuff right here. Then we have a common ancestor here, which breaks off to the tarsiers. and then everybody else. Then we have our New World monkeys, again, prehensile tail, and in trees. Now we start to get out of the trees some, and so here we go. We have another common ancestor here. There's our Old World monkeys. Now we come down to the apes. So the apes, we have our gibbons, and then we break down here to where we get our orangutans now branch off, and then here, and then the gorillas branch off, and then there's a common ancestor here, and then that's where the chimpanzees and the humans branch off from each other. So it's only way back here where we finally branched off and started to get our humans. So this is saying that humans are more closely related to chimpanzees than we are to gorillas. So here's the thing. Notice up here are the monkeys. So when somebody says we did not evolve from monkeys, anyone who actually understands evolution will agree with you. We did not evolve from monkeys. There was a common ancestor way back here, and you're even still going this far back to point out where we branched off from monkeys. Another common misconception is when people will sit there and they'll try to argue and try to show how smart they are and say, if we evolved from monkeys, why are there still monkeys? That's true. Again, we did not evolve from monkeys. Darwin never said we evolved from monkeys. Everything was all about an ancestor way back here. It means there was a common ancestor that as it branched off became completely different things. Notice every one of these where we talk about a common ancestor, the common ancestor splits. We don't have a line continuing with the common ancestor. This one switched out to a couple of different things. Slowly changed. That is the point of evolution. Over a period of time, the stuff slowly changed. So you can actually track as it slowly changes. And DNA stuff can prove how closely related we are to chimpanzees, but we're still not the same as chimpanzees. And so it's just something branched off and we became us. And we didn't go straight to being us either. That brings us to the hominin evolution. So paleoanthropology is the study of human origins and evolution. This focuses on that little bit of history where humans and chimpanzees came from their common ancestor. Paleoanthropologists have found about 20 species of extinct hominins. Extinct means they're gone. And these are more closely related to humans than to chimpanzees. So these are basically the little points where evolution was, testing out what was going to survive. And if you remember, evolution is an editing tool, not a creation tool. And so as reproduction continued, as we were passing on our genes, it was the stuff that was surviving that was able to continue. And so that's kind of how we became what we are. The others just kind of got cut by the wayside. So here we go. Timeline for some hominin species. We start way back here. This is so much more similar to the chimpanzee head and everything and the gorillas. And you will notice as we go up, the more recent times, different things are changing. Notice the size of the brain case as we look at these and the length of the jaw, the depth and everything. So once you finally notice we have Australopithecus along here, a few different genus there. We have genus here, and then we also have Homo genus. We already know we are Homo sapiens, so we know this is getting closer and closer to where we end up. Notice, if you will, all of these have little points where they say, okay, and then we're done. Homo erectus has a question mark. We don't know exactly when that one's gone. And notice that the Homo neanderthalis is right up here, and it overlaps with the Homo sapiens. This is not a mistake in making the graph. This is trying to point out something very, very particular, and I'll get to that. So, based on the fossil evidence represented here, how many hominin species coexisted 1.7 million years ago? So that would be right in this area, right there. Well, I made it easy for you. I circled them. There were 5 who existed at that same time period. So we have 3 genus Homo and 2 genus Paranthropus. Wow, that's a hard word for me. I can say genus Homo, that's so much easier. So that's how many were existing at the same time. Present day humans and chimpanzees clearly differ in 2 major features. 1, humans are bipedal. Bipedal, bi for 2, pedal for feet. So we walk upright. That's what bipedal means. And humans have much larger brains. Does that mean we're smarter? No. They have actually been discovering recently that the size of the brain does not actually dictate intelligence, but I'm thinking we should have already known this. But it's a fact that yes, we do have larger brains. Bipedalism arose millions of years before the larger brain size, so we started to get upright and walk on 2 legs a very long time ago. A clue to this is the location of the opening in the base of the skull where our spinal cord attaches. Ours is right back here, and so it's designed for our head to be up like this and looking around instead of like this. So here we go. I think we have a picture. There we go. Notice they're more like this looking forward, so it's a lower part. Ours is up like that, so we can, it's a checkpoint question where I'm going to, the answer is exactly what I'm talking about. So let's just go ahead and jump there. There we go. Location of the opening where the spinal cord exists in the skull. This is how they can actually tell whether you were walking like this or walking like that. In previous quarters, I talked about the evolution of why we might do a lot of this. And it honestly does have to do with like looking farther out and stuff like that. But I think we might come to that in another chapter because, again, still learning this new book. The genus Homo includes hominins with larger brains and evidence of tool use. We have Homo ergaster. They had a larger brain than H. habilis. Now, let me point out, you might already know this, but I don't think I've said it. When it has like here, H dot, that's just short for Homo. So since all of these are genus Homo, we can just say H. habilis instead of Homo habilis, same thing. So H. erectus with a larger brain than H. ergaster was the first hominin to spread out of Africa. So all of this began in Africa. I'm going to come back and talk about mitochondrial Eve in just a moment. So here we go. This is talking about the size of the brain as we go up. Notice we have here the Homo habilis. Over here we have the gorilla. So the gorilla has a decent sized brain, but not quite to this degree. But he's a lot bigger. So that's what body mass is here and brain volume is here. So the one that is at the biggest for body mass and brain is Neanderthal. We are down here, so the Neanderthals actually had a bigger brain. Interesting, right? So where in the world did they go? Well, the Neanderthals had a brain larger than ours, like I just pointed out, hunted big game with tools made from stone and wood. They were phenomenal. They did a lot. They were living in Europe as long as 350,000 years ago and then spread to the Near East. But by 39,000 years ago, they were gone. Like 100%, you couldn't find them anymore. Here, original discovery, right there in Europe, And then they believe they went all the way over here. But everybody started here. I keep losing my little laser pointer. Now, evidence from fossils and DNA studies have enabled scientists to trace early human history. All living humans have ancestors that originated as Homo sapiens in Africa. That will bring me to African Eve, or mitochondrial Eve. There were these studies, and I totally recommend looking it up if you find this fascinating. I find it fascinating that they can actually track the DNA, the mitochondria in our DNA, hence the mitochondrial Eve, all the way back to this one female ancestor in Africa. So it is proof that all humanity started in Africa. So yes, Africa is the motherland, period. No argument there. You can't. All evidence proves all humanity came from Africa. That's pretty cool. And then they just slowly spread out and just kept spreading. Oldest known fossils with definitive characteristics of our own species were discovered in Ethiopia, and they were somewhere between 160,000 and 195,000 years old. They found, like about 30,000 years ago in France, these cave drawings made by Homo sapiens. Look at the detail of this. I don't know about you, even with proper pencils and charcoal and stuff, I can't draw that well, so I think it's pretty fascinating. Interpretation of fossils of small hominins named Homo floresiensis, there you go, were found in Indonesia is controversial. They can't decide if these were really parts or if it was a dwarf descendant. They're still deciding all this stuff. So some are suggesting that they're a dwarf descendant of Homo erectus, more closely related to Homo habilis than to Homo erectus, or if it's not a species at all, but instead is Homo sapiens with a genetic disorder that caused the bone malformations. We don't know. It's just they're trying to decide. So scientists have to keep getting more evidence in order to figure out what the actual case is. Because that's the thing, is science can't tell you, they can't look at something and automatically go, yep, that's it. We have to learn. And to do that, you have to study more, you have to look at more, you have to open your brain a little bit more, you have to consider all possibilities, you have to be open to being wrong and coming up with new ideas. And so that's why it might say this one day, but then here it goes, oh wait, no, we have now discovered this. You never stop learning. You're always trying to better your knowledge, which I think is a lot better than just saying, nope, it's this, and never looking at anything else. I'm going to finish talking about the Neanderthals and then do this because I know we're almost done. And I really want to cover something about the Neanderthals. A lot of people are like, whatever happened to the Neanderthals? And I think your textbook touches on it, but I don't know if it goes into it more. I'm going to cover it right now because it's very important and pertinent to current situations. What happened with the Neanderthals is they were basically bred out by the Homo sapiens. So you saw on the other chart that the Neanderthals and the Homo sapiens kind of overlapped. Well, what happened is they're finding evidence that they coexisted. They were in the same general areas and they interbred. So they basically kept having babies until eventually the Neanderthals were absorbed into the Homo sapiens. And to this day, we still have Neanderthal genes in a lot of us. A lot of the current humans still have Neanderthal genes. And why I said it's pertinent to now is there are some new studies where the coronavirus seems to be connecting or reacting to the Neanderthal genes in a different way than they do to the straight up Homo sapien genes. So people who carry these Neanderthal genes actually are reacting a certain way. I've only seen one article so far, but I'm looking at some more and I'm going to post them for the class so you can take a look if it's something that interests you. But I don't know, it shows why we should actually look at history and understand some of these, because biology literally puts all of it together, because we want to understand why things work the way they do, not just be able to say, okay, here you go, but why and what makes it happen and how can we better understand it. And so basically this whole thing is a way of never having to grow out of that age where you just say why. And it's not a smart butt thing. It's a really wanting to fill your head with yet more knowledge kind of thing. And so it's pretty cool. Now, that brings us to human skin color. Clearly, not everybody has the same skin color. We vary all over the place. And typically, it varies geographically, probably due to natural selection. Not as much of a big deal now as it was before we could control our individual environments, our climates, because now we have houses and we can control how much heat or how much air conditioning, we can control how much sunlight, we can, when not during a pandemic, we can just hop a plane and go somewhere else, restart, whatever. So it's not quite what it was. However, evolutionary wise, the different shades of our skin developed in order to protect where we were located. So when you are closer to the equator, so think Africa, think of anything right by the equator, you need a darker skin, much darker skin, in order to block the UV radiation, because the UV radiation will degrade folic, which is like a folic acid, and this would make it where I completely lost my train of thought. The dark skin was to protect the body from the harsh rays of the sun. You can also look at the height and the body type and the amount of hair. The closer to the equator tended to be taller and leaner, darker skinned, and less excess body hair. So super pure African descent tends not to even have eyebrows because there's no need. Whoopi Goldberg is one of those you can look at. She does not have the eyebrows. And it's not that she shaves them, she just literally doesn't have them. There's no need. The place is hot. It's so that you can cool off the body easier, hence the tall. And the dark skin helps protect the body from too much radiation. And you're out in the sun, so you're already absorbing all the vitamin D you need to normally. This is also why if somebody has darker skin and then they're staying in the house more often, they're not getting as much sunlight, they tend to have more of kind of like a depression, not totally depression, but they have their own issues. A lot of people will talk about holiday depression and say, oh, around Christmas time, so many more people are depressed. It's not the holidays, it's the shorter hours of daylight and more people staying inside and getting less vitamin D. And so a lot of doctors will actually prescribe a full spectrum light bulb so you can be absorbing more vitamin D. Getting outside helps. So when you compare the kids that grew up always being sent outside to go play versus the kids now who stay indoors and are on computers and tablets and stuff like that instead of outside, you actually do see a higher rate of depression because it's lack of vitamin D. Very interesting. Now, conversely, go farther away from the equator and you tend to be shorter and stouter, hairier, and lighter skin tone. That's because farther away from the equator, if the skin is too dark, you're not going to absorb enough vitamin D. because the vitamin D is coming from the sunlight. And so if you're farther away from the high concentration of sunlight, you need the lighter skin to get the vitamin D to come in. Farther away also, though, is going to be colder, so more compact, so shorter, stouter, in order to hold the body heat in. Also, the increase in body hair is to help keep warm. So, pretty fascinating, actually. But now, of course, you can be born in one location, move somewhere else. You can control everything around you. So evolutionary-wise, there's no reason to adjust the skin tone anymore. Now it's just, genetics. It's just passed along. So this is showing you the example I was talking about. So here's where it's going to be hot, a lot brighter, a lot more radiation. And so this is where you're probably going to have, evolutionary-wise, the darker skin tones all along here. Way up here, not as much. And so these areas would have the lighter skin. So there you go. I just always found that fascinating, quite frankly. All right, thousands of new species of organisms are discovered each year. The pace of discovery has increased due to better access to remote areas, because we can go everywhere, and new mapping technologies. We can actually identify things. We can mark things down better, not to mention being able to also do the DNA parts, because being able to look at something and go, oh yeah, it looks like they're the same thing, and being able to test them to make sure that genetically they are or are not, that helps a lot too. So we're going to do a little checkpoint question because it's here. In reality, I kept this because the picture just cracked me up. I friggin' love this little frog picture. He's like, la la. I don't know. I love it. Anyway, what factors are responsible for the recent increase in the number of new species found? Technology. Technology and humans being able to get out there even more and see even more. Every time we can send something farther down into the ocean and actually take pictures and retrieve data, we gain more knowledge. So, we finished it. Now you should be able to do a whole bunch of stuff here. And I am about ready to stop talking for a bit because, oh my gosh, my throat is killing me. And we never even talked about Lucy. Anyway, this is the end of week 2 video lectures. If you have any questions or any comments, just shoot me a message. I will try to answer them. I look forward to meeting you next week. But for this one, do not forget to take exam 1. It opens at the end of this week, closes Sunday night, does not reopen. Make sure you take it. You do not want to miss exam 1. So I guess that's it. And until next time, peace out.